Thank you again for deciding to use this time to come to practice. So the topic today that I was going to approach might be a well-worn one in a theme that I speak to. The topic being thinking and non-thinking. Okay, which is a key tenet approach to Zen meditation. Master Dogen, Zen teacher of 13th century, is a very important Zen teacher in Japan and in the Zen lineage, Soto Zen lineage, wrote a fascicle on about Zazen, Zen meditation, how to sit Zen meditation, and in there he says that Zen meditation, Zazen, is that you should sit non-thinking. And then he says, how do you practice, or how do you sit non-thinking? And then he answers, non-thinking. Which, when the first time that I read that, I thought, well, oh, great. That's like that. Maybe not that helpful. What does that? What does that mean? In early reading Dharma, I sometimes had the sense of, why don't they just say what they mean? You know, it's like, is this being deliberately abstract or esoteric? It's only really with some practice, so later I came to realize, I see. You know, as human beings, we have this dualistic lens for experience in the world. Self and other, large and small, distant and close. All these different ways that we can discriminate within reality to separate. Useful, very useful for navigating a dangerous world, but very dangerous for understanding reality too. Has a real shortfall to rely on dualism. And so when I would read these writings of Dharma that seemed impenetrable, I came to realize that they were written from a place that defied a dualistic understanding, where you could just be broken down and known, but rather speaking from a place that points to something that is beyond intellectual knowing, intellectual experience. So when we sit, we have very clear instructions, no matter from the tradition. It's quite straightforward. You know, you don't have to. One of the good things, you don't have to invest in a lot of expensive equipment to become a meditator, right? You can just get a cushion or a chair, something very simple, and a place where you can be quiet for a period of time. So the entry to sitting is quite easy to attain. And then we learn something about posture and some basic methods and approaches for sitting. Right? It's just in our basic practice or fundamental practice as we began sitting today. Just a reminder for how to arrange the body well in order to be supported during 30 minutes of sitting. And then the helpful anchor of the breath to redirect thought or to redirect attention toward something that is immediate, direct, and not involved in analysis. Just a rising and falling of breathing. So when we do that, we redirect attention. Often our attention is involved in things that aren't pertinent really right now. It's like if we're in a safe environment, then if we're in a dangerous environment, I hope that none of us are, but when you're in a dangerous or chaotic environment, the mind naturally adapts to that. So you're consumed with what's real, because there's a perceived threat, right? So the mind will naturally adapt. We're just driving on the 91 freeway on the way here. It's like you really rely on the mind adapting to the chaos of 4 or 5 lanes of traffic hurtling at 70 miles an hour in a 80, in a metal box, right? So the mind will conform to that. Now, when we come into a sort of still practice of sitting, where things are arranged, talked at the beginning, a beautiful space, a place where you can really sit down, then the mind is not naturally, is not pulled to the environment in quite the same way. And often thinking will rush in to fill that space. Right? So we're confronted with things just as they are, but things just as they are, that may not be entertaining to the mind. Right? Isn't absorbed, the mind is not absorbed in things as they are, so then it looks for things to think about, or to ponder, or etc. Right? So that's a very common aspect. So what is thinking mind when we're sitting? We have the skillful anchor of breath awareness, redirect from just thinking about this and that, and put focus into breathing. When we do that, then there's some suppression to thought. Right? We're reclaiming bandwidth for breath awareness, so that thought doesn't have a big landscape in which to unfold. So then we're concentrating on breathing. That's a very valuable practice in itself. Through doing so, we invite peace, a greater sense of presence, a relaxation, an allowing of the body and mind to settle into this place of conscious breathing in and out. We could certainly never exhaust that practice, and that's enough. It's enough to sit and breathe. But as human beings, practicing Dharma and sitting meditation, a lot of the work of what is learned is how do we live with the thinking mind? How do we better understand and gain freedom while thinking is going on? If we're not suppressing thinking or putting thinking to one side, right? Dogen says, think non-thinking. Think non-thinking. What could that be? He actually picked that phrase up from a teacher, one of the Tang Dynasty masters in the same lineage. So it's I guess it's. I was going to say if you steal from anywhere, steal, but I won't go down that road. Right? It's but he used that line, and it came from a Yakusan Igen, who also said this: think not thinking. There's actually not so famous, but I'm very fond of it, interchange where Yakusan is sitting, I hesitate to say sitting meditation, because you can go beyond meditation in sitting. Yakusan is sitting, and his teacher comes along and sees him sitting and says, what are you doing? To Yakusan, checking in on him. What are you doing? Or what are you doing sitting there? And for those of us who ever learned and you get into meditation and you have that puzzlement from your family when you first get in, where they're what are you doing? what are you doing getting involved in this? Well, what is it that you're doing when you're sitting? But Yakusan says, I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything. Okay? So Sekito says, okay, then you're just sitting idly. Now, when Buddhism had become firmly established in China, at one point things took a sharp political turn, and there was a lot of pushback against the practice of Buddhism as being an idle practice, where people avoided work or making a contribution to society. It was just seen as an import from a foreign country that didn't have the strong work ethic. Right? So sitting idly was not encouraged. So he said, if you're not doing anything, then you're just sitting idly. And Yakusan says, if I was sitting idly, I'd be doing something. That's a subtle point, but it's very true. We can sit idly. Do you ever enjoy that kind of sitting idly? Right? Where you just have a little downtime. Maybe you're in kind of the armchair and the couch, and you have, things are broadly taken care of. You have a little time. You can read a little less, maybe do something else, a little something. You maybe sitting idly. There's a time and a place for that. Maybe not enough time and space for that. But that's not what Yakusan's talking about here. If I was doing nothing, there's still some doing there. If I was sitting idly, I'd be doing something. I'd be spending some time in idleness. Okay, so Sekito says, then what is it you're not doing? Right, nice retort. If you're not doing anything, what is the nature of that? Doesn't let him just go with a clever answer. What is it you're not doing? And Yakusan says, even 1,000 Buddhas don't know. Which is a very beautiful line, a very beautiful answer. None of the Buddhas know what this not doing is. And yet the Buddhas sit contentedly in the practice of meditation. Just like Shakyamuni Buddha here, right? This one's made of wood. He sits 24/7, 365, never closed, contentedly in meditation. This is the not doing that even 1,000 Buddhas don't know. Okay, what does this mean in terms of thinking and not thinking? Again, it was Yakusan, who's in this interchange, who brought this line out that Dogen would use nearly 1,000 years later. It was still so relevant. So if we have our concentration practices which are very useful to redirect attention into something positive away from something negative in order to promote concentration. But once concentration is established and we become adept at concentration and sitting, what then? Still, thought is appearing in the mind. Right? Now, we may have a value system around thought where if there's less thought, that feels like we're getting somewhere in sitting. And if we're very busy-minded, well, maybe we're regressing or not getting anywhere in sitting. But if we cease manipulating thought at all and just allow and experience thought to be what it is, then we can come to appreciate the practice of non-thinking. Like the Dharma is very difficult to express or to understand, as it defeats attempts to understand it dualistically, or conceptually. Right? But we describe to one another and try and use concepts as pointers towards pointing at something. Right? So if we thinking is like, my mind is like weeds or like a swamp, right? There's things that are going on all of the time. I had this experience this week where I have a neck injury which I kind of live with, which gets worse as you get older, and have some problems. And I went to my very trusted chiropractor who's been working with me for years, and afterwards, like the day after, I had some. Because it's really high up in my disc, I had these like weird neurological effects and some physical effects. Are really, kind of uncomfortable, and I had to take took a couple of days off really because I couldn't function very well. And I had a night where I couldn't sleep at all. Right? There was no. It's just like when that light bulb's off in your head, kind of not sleep. It's not like you can almost fall asleep. It's just like, oh no, I'm not sleeping. I'm kind of awake, right? And I was watching the content of my mind deal with that fact of that scenario. As I became more exhausted because I was very tired, you start getting. I just watched like the same thoughts, almost like kind of obsessional thinking, but just kind of goes like a hamster on a wheel. And then the worries come in oh, well, tomorrow I can't, I'm supposed to do this, and I'm not going to be able to do it now because I haven't slept. And you just see the whole thing. And I'm just watching my own mind with this experience. And for me, there's two ways to live with that or as that. Right? One is the practice component. So I spent some time, I'm just like, okay, you know what, I'm just going to lie horizontally and I'm just going to count my breaths for half an hour or so. And in doing so, use nice breath awareness practice, like a healthy redirection, can't sleep anyway, stay with the breathing. And that's helpful. It's kind of soothing and relaxing. Okay, maybe I'm up, not such a big deal. There's plenty more that's going right than is going wrong. Right? The other aspect from non-thinking is when when the content really rises up that is very, very difficult, or we're being, disturbed in different ways. If we live with a very reactive mind that is always taking the content of thinking as the most important, most pertinent and real thing, then we're being run by our own thoughts and living a reactive path. We're following a very reactive path. Right? But if we can experience thinking when it's like very busy, or in that case kind of disturbing, like there's a lot of volume, and instead of trying to suppress or redirect, just completely allow it to be as it is, and have no tussle or show no resistance to that whatsoever, and just completely allow and accept that. And then it really doesn't matter. That could be quite a scary process in one sense, but you can just allow then that to be as it is. So we can use practice or principle. And the guiding light there is what helps. What is it that reduces discomfort or suffering? Now this is, I'm just using the example of being awake in the middle of the night and approaches to something like that. But it's very pertinent in our meditation practice, like here on a Sunday afternoon. To think not thinking, to be involved in the not doing that 1,000 Buddhas don't know. That is the practice, that is this now. Right? It's like when we're sitting, when we're meditating, or to say meditation, there's still maybe some doing there in meditation. There's a concentration practice, there's a practice. But to be non-doing is to take the leap that draws no distinctions at all in the experiential reality. Right? It's to not value one thing above another in any way. And to really to enter into that. I say it's a leap because it's something that's really not practiced. It's either realized or it's not. I was talking with somebody recently who's a teacher, and they said that they were talking with a student of theirs about non-thinking, about the relationship to thought, and they said to them that they were starting to see what that was about. Like, I think I kind of get it a little bit now. They were telling, and I know this person, and they started practicing when I did. It's about the same time, 25 years or 30 years ago. Right? So you can think about non-thinking forever. Think about what non-thinking is. Or you take the leap to experience non-thinking. And again, that non-thinking is not the absence of thinking. The difference is are you identified and moved by that thinking or not? Can you experience and allow and listen to your own, or just watch the rising and falling of your own commentary and narrative, and be as undisturbed by it as you are by whatever was making the noise out here? It sounded like earlier, like what kind of animal that was. I didn't know they were native to Long Beach, but there was something what was it? Oh, the parrots. Oh, they live down here, right? Okay. Yeah, the parrots were going off over here, right? And sometimes, like when we're sitting in that way, the mind will recognize that, and it'll label, and it'll say Parrot, for those of you who know that. Or for this, we don't have parrots in the mountains, you know. So for me, I'm like, you know, what is that? But it's meeting that content in sitting that doesn't say my thinking is paramount, my commentary is paramount, is what's important. What's going on out here is mundane or not as important. Those distinctions are important much of the time when we're navigating a busy, you know, the relative world. But the time of sitting is the time to let go of the relative distinctions that are occurring, that are appearing, and rather just be like the wooden statue of the Buddha, sit that way, right? Which is no movement and no value system for what is experienced. That can really be drilled down to, because you start to see, well, what is it to experience something? What is content? What's arising and what's passing? What is passing? Like all of those distinctions are just distinctions of our choosing consciousness. But to understand what 1,000 Buddhas don't know, to realize your own Buddha nature, is to let all of those distinctions fall away. That way your own thoughts are just thoughts, which can be used and utilized or not. That's a wonderful thing, to have to have real choice there, or space around your own thinking. Right? To be like, if we've really got a tight grip on me, me, the me, I identity that's very fixed, it's a lonely world. It's a difficult world, because life is not cooperating with me. Or very briefly at certain times. But most of the time, life is not cooperating with me. And if I stay in the position of me, in a world that's not cooperating, then everything's always someone else's fault. Everything is because they did it, or the world did it, or like, why is this happening? Right? So there's more to, it's not a parlor trick to learn the art of still sitting and to understand non-thinking. But rather it's to return to the center of experience and be the watchful, observing one, the observing presence, that sees this life unfolding, miraculously unfolding. Internally, you know, that felt internal vision or experience, and externally, what's going on. And to rest there, to find that place that just sees, the one that just experiences and sees. When you sit that way, you're a Buddha. A Buddha means awakened one that is awake to this. We're all awake to this. Right? But we spend often a lot of time awake to this, but then we start to create an alternate reality of this based on my perception, an idea and conditioned construct of this. That's fine for all human beings, guilty as charged. Right? I have all kinds of preferences, and all kinds of all kinds of preferences. I'm sure you do too. It's like with Dharma practice, it's not that you let go and you no longer have preferences. The difference is your preferences don't run you. There's space and there's choice around that. Right? That is what we're doing here when we sit. It's entering into and becoming aware of great space and freedom. That great space and freedom has never been lacking. Is the landscape that we all walk in. But the more that we construct a narrative or a sense of me and stay with that separate sense, it gets small, it gets narrow, it gets bound up, it gets entangled. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to really to share time in non-doing. Right? That for me was like a real relief in the practice of Zen meditation, where it's like it flips from now I have to do this, and I don't want to do, because I don't want to sit. I don't want to sit. I want to play with my phone. I want to read about things that are happening 1,000 miles away, which I have no impact on, and form judgments about that. Or actually inherit judgments from other people and imagine they are my own. That's more, right? Having like independent opinion is actually kind of rare. Right? That's what I want to do. I don't want to sit. But when you sit, you give up the I. That's what a Buddha is, with 1,000 Buddhas. 1,000 Buddhas have all given up the I. Now they all have different names, as Shakyamuni Buddha, and it's like in the lineage chart we have different Buddhas before the Buddha, because different ones that go back into the distant past, to show that it didn't just begin with the original Buddha. But to surrender that I, me, ironically, you realize relief in that realization brings relief. Because I, me, has always got problems. I, me, has always got difficulties. Is always striving. Is always preferring. Is always picking and choosing. Is always somewhere in attachment and aversion. That is the key hallmark of the human condition. We're all hopelessly attached and hopelessly averse. Right? We want the things we want, we try and hold on to them. But everything slips through our fingers, eventually. Try and avoid the things we don't like, but they just keep coming. Right? Just wait till Monday morning. New stuff coming in the gate. So as a human being, always somewhere in attachment and aversion. But as a Buddha, as one who is awake and aware, free of attachment and aversion. Always content and awake to this as it is. And we can see into that and realize that, particularly in our sitting practice, where it is most obvious, but so difficult. Quite, we can trot those lines out and say, when you sit, let go of all the value system around any internal or external content. Let all that fall off and just be an awake Buddha. It's like, go on then, let's all do that. But it's difficult. It's subtle. It's a subtle practice. But we all do that. We do that many times a day. We may just not be so aware of that. We spend a lot of time in non-doing. Like every time you go to, like, it's a curious thing, every night when we go to sleep, if I was talking about, very grateful for sleep once you get back to it. It's a wonderful thing. When you're deprived of it, you realize that, right? But how like wonderful that those times where you actually disappear. Cognition and awareness even just disappears. But it's no problem at all. Right? You wake up refreshed. Oh, I'm emerging from complete dissolution. That was awesome. Turn over, so I'll get some more of that. So there's nothing to be like feared in that. Right? It's ironically liberating to let the sense of me rest, fall off for a while. So when Dogen says that, and he quotes that all those years later, how do you sit non-thinking? Non-thinking. He says if it really is, it's not something that is, I'm making an attempt to describe this, and I do so many times, but it seems that it is difficult or subtle art of just sitting. But that's the heart of Zen meditation in the Soto school, Shikantaza. Just sit. Be directly in contact with mind. Everything is mind. Not mine, not yours, not theirs, not others. Just this extraordinary mystery that we're all appearing as. You know those times where it's just like life becomes, it's just like another Tuesday or another Wednesday afternoon, or things just become, there's like a mundanity that can kind of settle in, like all of this. The Dharma is a wonderful dissolving agent for mundanity. So you see, it's just like, you might call it Monday or Sunday or Tuesday, those are just labels. Whatever I think or feel about today or what I need to do, it's always, you're always at this place of contact with just this as it is. And the liberation of a realization of that is always available. But it requires letting go of that aspect of mind that is always wants to kick the tires before it decides whether it wants to buy the experience. Like, do I want this or not? That's what has to be surrendered. And so we can just sit and be unconcerned with how things appear. Then it doesn't matter if a meditation period runs 5 minutes late, or 10 minutes late, although the legs might start to complain. But there's a timelessness then that comes into one's practice. In the meditation, on and off the cushion, there's a time you come to know that which is beyond time. Right? That is just another construct. Anyway, at this, for something as simple as think, not thinking, there's maybe too many words about it, right? But I'm interested to see if you have any question or comment, whether this resonates, whether you find it straightforward or difficult, anything that you would like to raise up, to share, or to ask. We have a lot of people here on Zoom too, so we can use our raise hand function, or just wave your arms over your head. However you'd like, if you'd like to share something, please do. Yeah.
I can see the advantage of not thinking, but when it comes time to act, how do you use the non-thinking wisdom to act skillfully?
Yeah. So just a question about how do we use I have to repeat because I don't think people can hear this. How do we use non-thinking in action when we're involved in things in the world? Is that so? Yeah. Okay. I think you already do. Right? There's. Think about many times per day where you act without thinking about it first. There's a beautiful line in a Zen koan that talks about compassion, where it says, talking about compassion, it says, it's like a person reaching for a pillow in the middle of the night. Right? It's like maybe you do that at night. There's not even any cognition around it. It's just you need the pillow. Who is it doing that? Don't know. It is like a natural response. So using this art of non-thinking in the midst of life it's enough to be present and aware. If you are present and aware, then you can respond. If you're not present and aware, then often it's a reaction based on a conditioned view of the world, or a sort of a mixture of both. But if you can practice present awakening, present awareness on the cushion, and then when you move from a cushion, you realize, of a bench, of a chair, and the meditation finishes, you realize, wait, nothing finished. Meditation didn't begin and end. Sitting down began and ended, but the meditation of a present experience has never begun and it's never ended. So then moving into the meditation of action, respond naturally and trust that response to come forward. Then you're a vehicle for presence. Awareness moves through you as the person you already are. Nothing new needs to be created or attained there. Just be. That's the last thing we trust, is who you already are. Often. Curious thing for human beings. We look to become a Buddha, but you can never become a Buddha. What's difficult to realize is you already are, and you can't become what you already are. So, it's just trust the practice in that sense. Live your life, trust the practice. Watch out for the narrative or the ideas or the conclusions or the thesis that you're always drawing in your mind about that. That's what that is, but that can be put to the side and rather trust yourself to enter in. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, Zoom. Who is it, sorry? Joey? Yeah. Joey?
Hello.
Hey.
This is probably a strange question, but I go to quite a few meditation meetings.
Yeah.
And I have friends who I talk to about meditation, and they tell me that they can't meditate.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that sounds so silly, because I know that they can. They don't want to turn their minds off because they're so used to it. So I guess my question is there an answer to say to these people when they say they can't meditate?
I wouldn't worry about trying to convince anybody. I mean, in my experience, I can do very little about other people, right? But I can do where I've got, where I can operate, where I can function is as this one here. Like other people or how other people appear, you can't really convince other people of much, right? I don't know. It's not like that other people agree. So in terms of meditation, it's just like, I wouldn't, personally, and this is just my opinion in answer to your question, is I don't really try and encourage people, In fact, in the Zen tradition, you actively discourage people. Right? Because you really, 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 really have got to want to do it. You've got to have to do it to stick with it in Dharma practice. Right? There's got to be something that drives you from the inside to once you get under the skin of it, once you really want to understand, that's got to be awake in you. If not, it's just you won't stick with it because it's as we know it can be a difficult discipline to continue. So you can, when people say they can't meditate, you can, smile at that and move on with what's next.
Yeah, you're right. I just need to hear it again. And
Yeah.
I know that's the answer, but I keep thinking somebody's going to have a great answer for me once or something.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
though I know there is no answer, but I like asking the question, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
I know some people that really would benefit from it.
Yeah.
I really know that they would. You have that feeling, and they just, no.
Yeah. Well,
All right. Let it go.
keep fishing. Maybe. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
How would you describe the relationship between thinking in the mind and feelings and emotions in the heart?
I'm going to repeat for this. So the difference between thinking in the mind, the relationship between thinking in the mind and then feelings and emotions. Yeah, that would be, you'd get a more concise answer from someone who's more studied in the kind of the entangled relationship and how feelings, emotions, and thinking inform one another. You know, it's more in the Zen tradition. You don't worry so much about identifying what is a feeling, what is an emotion, or what is thinking. You know, because if you start to kind of, you can unpack those things, and there's value. There can be real value in that, in just understanding how the mind functions. But from this perspective, in the Zen perspective, the most important thing is to stop, look, experience, don't move. Right? There's a line in the Tao Te Ching that just that talks about like how don't try and change the world. The world is perfect as it is. It's our efforts to change it that spoil it, right? Which is a very that's a very provocative thing. And that's just sort of, with thinking, with feeling, with emotion, there's a lot to unpack there, and depending on your own personal karma, it can be very important to bring analysis to that from different ways, different angles, different methodologies. Right? But in the practice of Zen, or in sitting, or what we're talking about today, is don't pass out thinking, feeling, or emotion, or separate those things at all. Just meet it all directly. Right? So you might be you're feeling a certain way, and that's not held as different to the sound of a dog barking on the street. Because through that, it's like when you stop making those distinctions and just meet things as they are, then you can really perhaps make the leap that sees all things as they are. Then there's a place to unpack and start to how does this inform this? How does that inform that? Right? But the relative world is endless. And it's like spaghetti. You pull one piece out, it's like, oh, and it's more, and it's like it's just endless. You're always going to be pulling on something. But at some point in Dharma practice, you just have to stop and ask no more questions, apart from one. I'm not going to say what that is. I hope maybe that's helpful. I'm kind of talking to the side of it a little bit. Okay, thank you. I'm just conscious of time. We're running over a little bit, so let's end with a Metta Chant. Again, it's, just in closing, it's like you could talk on these subtle points, but please, always know, it's like there's nothing to be carried forward or understood from this. You could just let it all go. Let it all go. Let the whole talk go. What's important now is bringing the hands together and offering the Metta Chant with sincerity. That's all we need to take care of. And that's a wonderful thing. May all beings be happy and safe from harm. May all beings be happy and safe from harm. May all beings be healthy in body and mind. May all beings be healthy in body and mind. May all beings be peaceful and free from suffering. May all beings be peaceful and free from suffering.